Hi, welcome to the show. I'm Matt Clark, and I've just completed 30 days utilizing the Access method. If you've been following along with the journey and watched some of the other videos, you will have seen a comprehensive guide on spaces, as well as an overview on each of the other folders. So who is Access for? Well, Access was an appealing journey into PKM, or Personal Knowledge Management, as presented by Nick Milo of Linking Your Thinking fame. I was intrigued by the ideas of these specific places for each note, and continue to see great benefit to the platform. So who was Access built for? Nick built it with the idea that it sat neatly between knowledge and action, folders and links. Something that took the knowledge power of Nicholas Luhmann's Zettelkasten and the action-oriented framework of Para from Tiago Forte into something that sits squarely in a form that works well with Obsidian, combining folders, links, and tags to harmoniously connect your notes in a hierarchical storage pattern while still being somewhat flat in terms of the ability to work between other applications. It's because of this I suggest Access is for people with multiple spaces to manage in their life, like work and life, but also have an interest in pursuing knowledge and the collection of ideas in their own right. This can be your academics, students, workers. The true answer is that there's no one size fits all. So what makes the Access method good? The thing that made the Access method so appealing was that everything seemed to have a correct place for it. Each subcomponent lives in its specific container, which made it very easy to find and link, which also being easy to navigate to in a file structure when it was required. It makes it easy to drill down to a project while giving all of the freedom to reach into different notes as required. It follows a concept I've found around decluttering your workspace, or rather progressive cleaning. These are all examples of sort of single piece flow, which is sort of a manufacturing concept. But the idea is that as you're cooking or as you're working, you constantly restore your workspace to a clean area, which makes it easy to find things where they're meant to be. And so this means that your best focused thinking can happen and there's no other distractions. And while I was misusing areas in my spaces folders and in my spaces video, I found that the clarity after an information gathering session made utilizing tools like Canvas so much easier at the end of it all to start drawing meaningful conclusions between different notes. Now, when I say misusing the areas folder, each person is welcome to use their PKM or their Obsidian Vault however they like. But in this instance, I believe the archive folder was actually meant to land into the support notes folder now. After 30 days, that makes the most sense to me, whereas the areas becomes that areas of a responsibility type thing. They're like projects that never finish, like your job or your parenting or something like that. It's really important that that distinction is made. So how did I use the Access method? I found that the majority of time utilizing Access as my primary structure was actually spent within the spaces folders. Everything I needed was just arm's length away. For me personally, most of my work happens within the areas of my life. Having carved up a calendar of what my free time looks like, my three main spaces are work, life, and content creation. And so I spent the majority of my time in my spaces directory. Being able to collapse each directory that represents an area of my life let me move between each space seamlessly, which also meant I wasn't staring at work projects all day long when using Obsidian on my desktop PC, phone, and work systems. This meant I spent no time outside of the spaces directory, or rather very little of it. Instead, I spent the bulk of my time working within that space, and things that landed outside of that space also had a place. And that feels nice. Things that I learned. Well, over the course of the 30 days, I studied for and achieved an artificial intelligence certification. Part of my consolidation of notes and capture of all of my learnings was actually an experiment in visual learning, whereby I create a long-form image that let me explain the artificial intelligence in Microsoft Azure. It was a good bit of work, and it was fun to get some of these creative juices flowing. It also helped a lot with recall. Where am I going with this statement? Well, one of these things that gets thrown about a lot in the note-making community is the idea of notes being both atomic and minimalist. Creating small linked ideas, but most importantly, sparingly, can be the biggest help that you can have. The thing that I learned with this approach, at least for me, is that you really just capture notes as is appropriate for you. While I'm learning a subject, I really do grab a whole raft of notes. Reading something like Microsoft Learn, so you end up with page after page, where you're grabbing one or two things out of the whole lot and throwing that into your folder. You do end up with notes for doing this, and this sometimes becomes pretty overwhelming. But in a way, this is all of the key points to the topic, the keynotes. What I learned and I demonstrate in my last video is that I grab these notes and then move them out. I put them in the areas folder originally, but into the support notes folder. I then start a canvas and drop all of those notes into it and start assembling the links. And you begin to see all of these notes starting to form together in this spatial sense that lets you create link chains. And from there, you can actually create good notes. So in a sense, the original notes that helped you build your notes out serve to both reinforce your knowledge, but also double down and review everything, solidifying these knowledge notes in your brain as you create cards from that research. Another thing I learned is that the sources folder for archive works well for declaring of note inbox bankruptcy and for stuff that exists outside of your spaces, but it isn't necessarily the best spot for your spaces notes when you are moving them to archive. So in this way, I've since adapted the supports note folder to also have an archive within it, which is also a great first place to look when you're starting a new project, as you most likely have foundations for that project there. Over the course of this month, I did review Tiago Forte's latest book, Para. He talks about marrying your notes folder structure between similar save locations. So having these folders created just in time, which is creating the folders as you require them as opposed to creating the structure in advance, in your My Documents folder, in your other areas that you're going to work, in your workspaces, in your OneDrive, in your calendar, maybe not your calendar, but stuff like that, and other locations means that you can save a lot of cognitive energy on where you're looking for files. You can even put a note in your Obsidian Vault saying where stuff is. And it was one of those important things that, when you come up to something and you sort of go, hey, I'm looking for this file and you can't find it. How many times do you go searching through your documents folder, trying to find something, searching through your email, that kind of stuff? Having your stuff organized in that way really helps finding that stuff quickly and easily. One of the things about Access is that the maps folder structure actually has a lot in common with the Para methodology. Where this marries the structure to a great acronym in Maps, Para tries to map the folder structure to a knowledge flow. I think in a similar way, Maps does the same thing with support notes containing an archive, or the A of Para, the second A of Para, and your space becomes a great place to gather information. The final thing I'll touch on is that the attachment folder is great when you're doing something like blogging. Having all of those clutter files and images managed helps to keep your root directory cleaner, and that's fantastic, as these blogs do get quite bogged down with images. With that said, I've decided that moving forward, being that everything is being pushed into a projects folder for the most part, that I would rather instead have the related attachments be kept within the project structure. I'll be changing over to using the in subfolder under current folder under the files and links option in Obsidian, and you can find that just here. Finally, would I continue to use Access? Honestly, working through this and towards the end of the 30 days, I was struggling specifically with the archive. And so that was causing me enough pause that I thought maybe Access isn't the right method for me. But I've had a few light bulbs about the support notes folder and how that's an ideal location for that, and how the areas folder is actually meant to be used. And I feel that the solid structure of Access gives a great platform to continue working in a structured, cohesive fashion. The great design work that's gone into creating the balance between knowledge, action, folders, and links has created a perfect symphony within my vault that really allows me to focus up on what matters, squashing out distraction and focus on tasks that are occupying my time. Hey, before we wrap up, I'd just love to turn the conversation over to you. If you've tried the Access method, or if you're even thinking about it, I'm eager to hear your thoughts. What are your successes, your challenges? Maybe you have tips or tweaks that have worked wonders for you. Let's create a community of shared learning and insights right here. Drop your questions and experiences down in the comments section. Every perspective adds value, and I truly believe that together we can refine and maximize our understanding of the Access method. And if you've enjoyed the deep dive over the 30 days, give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more content like this. Your support inspires me to keep sharing and learning together with this wonderful community. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and remember, knowledge is power, especially when shared. See you in the comments and in our next video. Peace.